Ottawa has a new travel advisory for the United States. They are flagging new rules for Canadians who plan to visit. Starting next month, April 11th, Canadians aged 14 and older who visit the U.S. for more than 30 days will need to register with the U.S. government. These new rules are part of U.S. President Donald Trump's crackdown on immigration and border security, part of a new executive order. To help us unpack these new changes and what you should know before you travel, we're joined from Southfield, Michigan by immigration lawyer Stuart Friedman. Welcome to your morning.
Good morning.
Listen, we are in a whole new world with the United States in terms of trade and travel. Canadians who were previously exempt from a U.S. visitor registration rules, what specifically will Canadians visiting the U.S. need to do starting April 11th? What will they need to have with them? What will they need to do?
Well, the first thing I want to do is tell everybody that this does not apply if you're not in the United States more than 29 days, 30 days or longer. What my president did is he repurposed an old World War II regulation to apply to Canadians here. The order is nebulously called Protecting Americans Against Invasion. I don't think that the rules are particularly onerous, but they are insulting to many. Canadians do not, contrary to what some of the material on the internet says, have to give fingerprints. What they have to do is, when they arrive at their destination, within 10 days of arriving at their destination, register with an account with USCIS, U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service, and give them their current address and then update it. But this rule only applies to people who've come through a land border or, say, from the ferry from Victoria to Anacortes, Washington. If you fly in, you're exempt. You're exempt from the rule if you are in the U.S. on any skilled worker visas or accompanying visas for family members. If you do if you do drive in, the rule only applies if you are not stamped in. If you request to be stamped in, you are exempt. And I recommend this particularly for RVers who won't be in one place for very long.
Sure, that's a rule then. Right. So if you mentioned RVer, so that is a rule. You can ask for that at the border to say, I prefer to be stamped in, which I guess is just sort of physical evidence that you've been checked by a U.S. border?
You can request it, and they've been pretty good about granting these. Okay. But you will go to secondary and assume anytime you go to secondary inspection that you will be searched. So there is that. You're required to carry proof of registration. So a passport stamp would be great and would exempt you from having to give them all your changes of address. You could also download this from the I-94 website from U.S. Customs and Border Protection, but I think the physical stamp would be the better proof.
You know, for us Canadians who are used to traveling, certain months of the year down south of the border, this is very disconcerting, as you can imagine, having to carry papers, proof that you've been approved to be in the United States. We're just not used to this. And groups, including the Canadian Snowbird Association, are condemning these new rules. I'm sure you know these numbers, but every year about 1 million retired Canadians spend their winters in the southern United States. So when we're talking about people who are affected by these changes, we talked about people who are there for 29 days or more, so 30 days plus. RVers, you've mentioned, we've talked about snowbirds. What kind of changes will this bring to their travel and their living experience south of the border?
Well, I had one client compare this to having to being registered on the sex offender registry. She found it that insulting. I've had other clients who have talked to me about just moving elsewhere. If Florida does or Arizona doesn't want our money, give it to somebody who does. My president seems to regard this as an invasion, and I think that's to repurpose his war powers, but it makes it even more insulting. And we're talking about an invasion of Canadian snowbirds. I think most of those communities would be delighted to have that.
Yeah.
It is absolutely driving a wedge between our two countries.
Immigration lawyer Stuart Friedman, we appreciate you being on the show this morning, clearing up some of the confusion around the rules. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
If you like that video, make sure to subscribe to the Your Morning YouTube feed, where you can find all kinds of new content posted every weekday morning.